Welcome to the Nonsense in the Chaos. I'm your host, Jaylee Rose. Today I am interviewing my dear friend Naomi, who I have known for 7 or 8 years. We worked out, and I know her through creating installations and interactive experiences for the visitors who come to the area of Shangri-la at Glastonbury Festival. So Shangri-la has been around for a long time now. I'm not quite sure when it started. It took over from Las Vegas. So Las Vegas and then its more recent manifestation, which is Shangri-La, are known as the Naughty Corner at Glastonbury. And we are the late night bit. So once the main stages have closed down, then people come over to the Naughty Corner and we're up till later. And when people come to the area, there's a lot of messaging. There's a lot of political messaging. There's a lot of heart and soul in what's happening. So not only is it hedonistic and fun and the late night bit, but there's some really important key messages that we're getting across every year, and they're to do with inclusivity and creating a better future and tearing down and sending up and making fun of capitalism and neoliberalism and marketing and things like that. So it's brilliant. I love it. It's one of the most politically engaged art projects that I work on, I'd say. I mean, everything I do has got a political edge to it, and all art is political. But this is probably the most political out of the work that I do, the most overtly, I guess. And it's going in a new direction this year, which I'm extremely excited about. It's been sending up and taking the mickey out of high streets for the last few years. And we had people being estate agents and trying to sell portaloos for millions of pounds and old tents and stuff like that. And we had people doing chugging, which is charity mugging, where people come up to you with clipboards and lanyards in the street and try and get you to sign up for a charity. So we were doing things like that, signing up to give money to Elon Musk so that he could carry on being awesome while you weren't really doing anything that useful with your time and energy and money. So you might as well give it to him, things like that. And Naomi is the calm in the storm of all of this, where she orchestrates the theatre element of the Shangri-La family, and I support her and work with her. And we'd been together for a couple of days the first year we worked with each other before we clocked that we were both fools, but from a completely different lineage. And so I'm really interested to hear where she's going to go with this, because it's a completely different take on it all to the ones that we've already explored with Howard and Joe Tremarco. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation and seeing which direction we're going to go in. So without further ado, here is the awesome Naomi Smyth. Welcome to Naomi Smyth, which I've just found out that's how we pronounce your name, and I've known you for years now. It's been about 6-7 years. It's been quite a while. I want to know where you are, and I want to know what's going on in your life at the moment, because the last time I spoke to you, you were possibly only just moving into a house from living more on site, in a more on site situation. So what's going on? Where are you living and what are you up to?
Well, I think we might have known each other for 7 or 8 years, but I am currently in a lodge, which is like a very large static, basically like double static. You might have seen them on motorways. They're like a house sliced in half on the back of a truck. So we've lived in this field for about 10 years now. And for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been moving in and out of it. The structures we had made the winters quite rough, like with our daughter. It's fine for us before she was born, but now we've got a much more livable structure, and it just feels like a house.
Excellent. And do you live near Kay?
No, around the same time, a lot of the people that I worked with at the Invisible Circus and in that whole creative community moved to the outskirts of Bristol. It was a few years after squatting became illegal and rents in Bristol went up massively, and we all just got a bit tired of cramming into rented rooms. It's partly an age thing as well. And the whole Temple Cloud crew are on the southwest side of Bristol in the Glastonbury direction, and we're on the northeast side of Bristol. So we're sort of all in a ring around Bristol. There's a few different sites and communities dotted around Bristol. And
tell me about the Invisible Theatre then, because I want to know about your journey with fooling, and I guess maybe the Invisible Theatre is part of that. But I'm particularly interested in the fact you come from a different lineage of fooling to me, because we've interviewed quite a few fools on the podcast. And it was such a shock when we'd been working together for, I think it was like at least a day. I think it was like the second or third day of being at Glastonbury, where we were like, oh, you're a fool as well. That's why we completely get what each other's doing. And it was a real joy and such a surprise to meet someone from a different lineage. So talk about your history and your journey.
I studied theatre and always wanted theatre, but I wanted to be in weird old derelict buildings with a load of weird artists from different disciplines, because that was the stuff that really excited me when I was studying it. But I didn't really think that stuff was happening very much. And then I went and studied filmmaking because I didn't want to just be doing auditions and stuff. I wanted to just be making weird stuff. In 2006, a massive art squat opened in this sort of 4-story, 5-story garage called the Audi Garage. And it was the Invisible Circus. And they were staging cabarets, specific gallery shows, and then ultimately this immense site-specific promenade theatre piece full of circus and a lot of weird characters and improvised performance and roving musicians. And it all had this kind of like anti-capitalist sort of sarky satirising, but like a lot of joy and a lot of fun as well. I just got my own video camera and I started filming them because it was like a vision of like the kind of thing I wanted to be involved in, like the happenings in the 60s and Dada and Bauhaus and just like all these nutters holding up in big old buildings and making whatever they wanted to. And I ended up following them through a lot of different squats in Bristol through to becoming a company that was more sort of negotiating access to like bigger and more spectacular buildings as the years went on. And then about 2011, so 2007, I got involved in making shows for them. 2008, I think I met Kay, been like coming up with weird characters and improvised bits and bobs with Sarah Fielding, who was like the theatrical director of the circus at the time. And then Kay came down from London and we really clicked. And she was working at Shangri-la in Glastonbury then. She wasn't in charge of the full creative direction of the field like she has been the past few years. But she'd been there from the beginning since it was Lost Vagueness. And so she really got the like how you would get into a character in an installation and you would stay in your character for 5-6 hours talking to audience members and making them laugh and just finding out what kind of interaction they wanted to have with you and like finding the game and finding the funny and like the relationships between everyone. And so she was part of the laundretters, which was this laundrette at Lost Vagueness at Glastonbury, where you could go and actually get some stuff washed, or you could get like yourself pampered a little bit. But like it was this sort of East End laundrette where they were all like had their own characters and had their own shared history. So we really connected on that, and me and Kay and Sarah made a lot of stuff for Carnival shows. That was an Invisible Circus show. We did 4 iterations of it in this massive old derelict public building. It's like a triangle, Bridewell police station. So some of it is still artist studios, and I think one part of it's a venue, but it's for a youth project now. But when the Invisibles first moved in there, it was like derelict firemen's quarters, and I had like a fireman's pole and like a practice tower, offices, and it had cells, and it had a magistrate's court, and just all of these mad sets, all to do with power as well, you know, power and the law, and like very exciting things to be in if you make live anarchic work. So that was part of it. But in all of that, I met hundreds of people through that community, and it's still, if I'm around someone who was there at that time, out of the hundreds of people who were there at that time, there's still like a feeling of home. That's this really beautiful gift that we all had, like making those shows. a lot of people were living together. I didn't live there, but felt quite close and embedded in there. And I was still filming until 2011. I made a feature-length film, The Invisibles, called Invisible Circus, No Dress Rehearsal. And that's on YouTube now. And it's an hour and 40 minutes long. Super proud of it. Went around milking it at screening venues and stuff for a bit, and then hid it for a bit, thinking, oh no, I'll bet I can get some money out of it again. And eventually I was just like, no, let it go. You can just watch it. So, I don't know, there's a lot. In amongst that time, Holly Stoppett started teaching clowning, and she offered her clowning workshops to the Invisible Circus. That was the beginning of her becoming this clown teacher. In her process of becoming a clown teacher, she studied with more or less every clown and fooling teacher she could get her hands on. One of those was Frankie Anderson, who, as Holly tells it, originated fooling in Bristol and taught Jonathan Kay briefly. And then they split ways and formed two different lineages of fooling. And so Frankie taught Holly also, and Holly studied with her a lot. And then, but hadn't been, so she was using fooling in her own practice, but hadn't been sort of teaching it and sharing it explicitly until I think about 2012. I'm not really sure. She'd been teaching it a couple of years, I think, when I went to see the first public show of fooling that I'd ever seen. It was some of my friends. Ed Rapley was in that cohort. Adam Blake convened the whole thing because he wanted to learn fooling for a solo show he was making. And I could not believe it. I was like just on fire to see like individual performers just do a show. Just no premise, no props, no like, just like, I'm here. What am I going to do? Thing. And for them to fly in that, make something compelling and hilarious, and sometimes like orcs and a bit shit, but like mostly, I've rarely not enjoyed a fooling show. It's probably my favourite medium, so I had to train and I had to learn how to do it. So I've been doing that 10 years.
Yeah, because actually we've talked to quite a few people about fooling, but I don't think anyone has heard yet what a fooling show is like. So you touched on it a bit there, that nothing's prepared. It's a bit like watching a tightrope walker, but as a performer. Like you're putting yourself out there without anything, which is a really foolish thing to do. Why would you get on a stage with nothing prepared? But is there any more to it than you would like? What is it that's sort of set you on fire about that? Because it probably sounds just like absolute torture to anyone listening.
I think Holly's a good teacher of it, having been through a lot of clown teachers who will just lob you to the wolves and tear you down if you're not immediately funny, if your jokes are not like bam, bam, bam. She's sort of like, I know that a lot of performers thrive on that, but I personally don't. And I think like Holly found it sort of quite damaging to her confidence as well. But so the way she does the training is quite soft, and you kind of all learn to like support each other. And it's an atmosphere of like non-critical feedback kind of thing, because it kind of takes as read that if you're going up and performing in front of people without any clue what you're going to do, you're not always going to feel great about it. And you've already got plenty of inner critics who are going to give you shit about it. And it can feel quite vulnerable internally. So for me anyway, the training is in like courage and trusting yourself and not minding people seeing you struggle, not letting them paralyze you and carrying on through the sticky bits. And so you might get like a collage of thoughts. You might get a bit of someone, because you change spots. Okay. So the way we would do a fooling show is we've started sharing facilitation a little bit more now, but it was always Holly before. He would frame it for everybody and tell the audience what the form is. Because if the audience don't know that you haven't rehearsed and they don't know that none of it's written, I think for one thing, like it's not as exciting. It's not that you don't know that there's a drop below the tightrope. So she would do that framing and holding, and then we would have slots of 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour each, and you would go on and see what comes up first. and whatever comes up first, you would play that. And that's very open, because as a form, it is very open. A lot of people, their first fooling shows, or like when you're training, a lot of what comes up first is like howling terror. And it's like you're advised to sort of play that. If that's what's there, like play it, show it. And I always say it's so funny because that is like when the audience understand what you're doing, if they see a performer play that, they get it immediately, because that's the reason everyone doesn't do it. It's like, that's one of the things that comes up. It's just like, what am I going to say?
Terrifying.
Like, what if I say nothing? What if this is shit? What if I say something really self-incriminating? What if what if I haven't earned my place on this stage by the end of it? And it's like, but usually, even if the first thing is howling terror, on each piece, each personality or mode that you go through, each fragment, we call a mask. So if the first mask is the mask of howling terror, you start with that one. You might amplify it, but you're not going to do it for 20 minutes. You might return to it, but something else is going to emerge when you've howled in terror for a little while. Then you might be banging your hands on the floor and you notice something sparkly on the floor and pick it up, and like then you're in a different mask and something else is happening. Or you find yourself funny and then you're in a different mask, laughing at the scared one, and you can put all those pieces in dialogue with each other. There's something about it that's very emblematic of like being like what it's like inside to be a human being.
Yeah, what's happening on the inner world with all the different voices. It's interesting to hear that, because it's a different structure to the fooling that I work with. We call it a repertory company, so we have our repertory company, but we don't. The thing that I've always noticed with you guys is I think that you're better at performing in terms of the ease. It's easier for you guys to perform. There's an ease and a playfulness and a freedom that you have from your lineage that I think we're a bit more furrowed browed and a bit more hard on ourselves on the one that I've trained in. I feel like there's a bit more cosmic depth to the one that I've trained in. It feels like there's a bit more of a like universal, I don't know, magic shamanicness to it. Even though Jonathan doesn't send himself up as a guru, there is quite a lot of philosophical and, I don't know, mystical kind of discussion and aspect to it. But something that I have noticed, and I think this is true of all of the sort of teachers you were talking about, the ones that are hard on people, that they really bring out the shy, unassuming people that haven't yet really fully expressed themselves, like they're really into those people. Whereas if you're someone who's already quite self-expressed and out there and quite an extrovert, they have to it's almost like they want to break you down. And I don't know whether it's because they themselves were people that were quite shy and they don't like confident people, or whether it's because people with a bit of ego, I don't know whether it's for people with a bit of ego needs breaking down a bit. I don't know what it is, but I kind of got to a point in myself where I was like, I don't think you're ever going to forgive me for how confident I am. And it's not all ego. I struggle to, let go of my ego, but I think everybody does. And so I found it refreshing to be around you guys, because it felt like the people that you work with and bring to Glastonbury and the freedom they had was from a much more confident and playful place, and less melancholic and kind of delicate and gentle, which is what it felt like my world. Basically, in my world, if you're a melancholic, shy, gentle, delicate thing, which is wonderful because they've got so much to give and often don't have a spotlight and centre stage place to do it, then they really shine. And us sort of more confident people are a bit like, shut up. Whereas with you guys, it was like everyone could just go for it and be as big and loud and crazy as possible. And that really suits Glastonbury, because you can't be all delicate and vulnerable performing at Glastonbury. You've got to be very thick-skinned. So it was refreshing for me. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think I've always tried to have a few fools at Glastonbury with me, but increasingly they're people who've just done improv or different types of training, who haven't necessarily done the full school. But it's definitely, I think a lot of people as well have just done a lot of festival work. And you do end up with this sort of Teflon Teflon skin about you. You've got to like engage the people to come and play with you because that's what you're there to do. But then also like you get shy people, you get wasted people, you get handsy people, you get aggressive people, and you've just got to, like, whether you're trained as a fool or not, it helps. I will say that. But either way, if you're going to keep going back at Shangri-La, you have to understand that, like, it's not like an audience that's going to sit and be quiet and you don't know what the individuals are thinking. Like, those individuals are going to come and splatter their personality onto you as well. And it's just like, whoa, yay, right. I'm staying in character, I'm doing my thing. Like, are you enjoying it? Like, oh, whose boundaries are going to get stepped over? And trying to make sure they enjoy it. But also, yeah, I mean, a lot of people I know have done festival performance for these hours on end in character, especially late at night, have experienced some like aggression, some like sexual harassment, and to not take it personally and to be able to take care of each other as a crew, and just to know you can just snap out of character and tell them that's allowed, it's necessary, and you've got to maintain your boundaries. Different kind of improvisation, right? Like interpersonal dealing with whatever comes along. And then someone might be super shy and just really curious and intimidated to talk to you, and like, how easy and fun can you make it for that person to engage with what you're offering?
I'm always surprised at how unproblematic it is performing to such a hedonistic crowd. I've not had any very unpleasant experiences. I've had the odd kind of like, you're a bit, but it's never been, and it, like you say, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, I've never had a horrible experience. It's always been fun. And considering performing to zombies, it's quite incredible that we've managed to have so much fun with people. It is really playful because people are in a very open headspace, and so they're up for the craziness and the weirdness.
Yeah.
And you're taking them to a different reality. I just love that. I love that we're blowing people's minds. That's something that I really enjoy about it.
Yeah, same. I love it so much.
I wanted to ask you about the work that you've then moved on to doing, because you've gone into quite a different direction and you're doing your PhD. Are you still loving the work that you're doing or are you sick of it and you never want to touch it ever again? But tell us about where your trajectory has taken you since.
Yes. Wow. So from back when I first started with the Invisibles, I've always had a tech angle to my work. During that time, I was a university technician teaching video tech, so like video cameras, microphones, edit suites, and making video myself. And I brought that into the Invisible Circus stuff. So I'd like looping TV channels, different shows we were doing. So like found footage and like old adverts and spoof adverts that we had made, and like spoof TV shows that we had made. And it would all be this like, this is what I think the telly would be like in this world. Working at a university, I work at Bristol University, and I have often had that as a part-time job that enabled me to do my creative stuff and to take advantage of the long academic holidays when they didn't need me as much to kind of use their kit and stuff like that. It's been quite supportive for my practice. In media studies, you come into contact with people who are using tech for the arts. One of my colleagues was into immersive sound, so we made a binaural sound installation. I drew on the fooling for that. I researched it and wrote the script and performed it. My friend Ruth, who's done a PhD in binaural sound designed it and edited it. I made a little installation that was a writer's desk called the Writing Mind. So the voices in the head would, when the writer sat to write, would come from all these different directions, and there were sort of distractions and fears and self-doubt coming from around here, and like focus and like seeing the light ahead coming from this way, and like kind of placing those voices that you would get in a fooling show kind of around the head in the soundscape. And I applied for a PhD in emerging technologies. What I was going to do was look at big productions like War of the Worlds, or Boomtown at the time had a whole venue that was full of a lot of VR experiences. And I'd been working for them for several years at that point as well, running micro venues. And that's what I was going to do, is look at how immersive theatre, in-person immersive theatre, is using emerging technology and kind of how it meshes in, and the commonalities between entering a fictional narrative in virtual reality or in a spatial soundscape versus doing so in person with live performers, how those are interlinking, if they are, how does it function, all that stuff. And then COVID happened and all of that work was immediately illegal. And it was, theatre was cancelled indefinitely. I pivoted my PhD to be about what are immersive theatre artists doing in this time. Specifically, we're people who don't think in the way of like, we present the show on the stage and you sit over there. Doesn't translate perfectly to video. Everyone knows that. There's a shared experience. There's an embodiment that's missing. It's like you're in a space that's resonating and vibrating with whatever's going on the stage and whatever everyone's feelings are. But it translates more easily than a medium where you're coming face to face with someone and saying, I've got stories to tell you. How do you want to hear it? You're part of it as well. You're playing this role and I'm playing that role. And the kind of stuff we would do with the Invisibles or at Shangri-la or Boomtown, where the performer casts the audience member and offers a game. So we've done job centres, we've done cool campaigns, we've done charity muggers, like street charity muggers last year, and playing with these interactions that people already understand, but that aren't usually a source of what happens when you can't be close to someone, and what happens when you want to establish that like reciprocal content and make a conversation happen. And that part, the reciprocity of it, the back and forth of it, is the pivotal part of it. Because in my experience, that part is very dependent on eye contact, body language, all the different types of body language, how close someone's willing to stand to you, their gestures, their posture, what you can hear and sense of their breathing, like eye contact, super important, tone of voice, stuff like that. And like we can do some of that over video, but you can't see my whole body. And the eye contact is an illusion of eye contact, like I feel like I can look into your eyes, but it is just a picture of you. And the frame is not, if I'm looking into the eyes of the audience, I'm staring into this like pinhole camera on my laptop, which feels completely dehumanized and weird, but I'm making like eye contact. So what were immersive theatre artists doing to get as close as possible to that feeling? So I've got 3 case studies. One is a telephone show, amazing telephone show called The Telelibrary by Yannick Trapman-O'Brien. One-to-one phone conversation where you bring part of the show and he brings part of the show, and it's very reciprocal. But there's no non-verbal communication. It's Welcome to Respite, which is a social VR show that takes place in VR chat. You need a headset, which makes it quite inaccessible for a lot of people. But that's a beautiful show as well, because you can make the audience member into this small child and the performers play the parents, and you know what the role is. And you play out this drama. You're playing someone else and their childhood memories. And it's quite disorienting, and it's a bit horror coded as well. Nurturing and holding of like how intimidating that might be for an audience member. Come and play in a completely alien digital environment. And another one was like a Zoom show in boxes with kind of cutting between performers. And that was the least reciprocal, but you could be present as an audience member by sort of lighting yourself in your home so the audience could see each other, which is a thing that wasn't available in the others. And one whole chapter is all the stuff that I tried out with my own work and with Beyond the Ridiculous with the Fooling Company. We were delivering a 6-week full school all together, 6 of us with Holly, when the lockdown happened. And we started out doing it on Zoom and on phone calls and like making recordings that people could do exercises to. I then gradually built up to doing a Fooling show on Zoom. When the lockdowns were just like starting to lift, about half of us were comfortable to be in a theatre and the other half weren't. So we did a show where 3 of us performed at home on our screens, and that was streamed onto the back of the stage at the wardrobe. 3 of the performers performed in person at the wardrobe, and we had like an invited 10 people, gave them free tickets, and they all had to wear a mask and stuff like that. But we also streamed that whole thing to an at-home audience. So that was many. Oh yeah, I made a VR show. I made a solo VR fooling show called Mindland. I got Arts Council funding, DYCP funding to do that. And I worked with an artist who made me a landscape that symbolised my internal world. It was my way to sort of visualise some of the things that I would be showing people in a full show, but couldn't fully show people remotely and digitally. I made scans of my home environment and my work environment, which was this little caravan full of bits and bobs. There were characters, different avatars that were like my younger self, and different masks of mine. I would switch avatars instead of just doing it with voice and body language like I would on stage as a fool. So that was an interesting experiment. Played with a lot of stuff, and I am still interested in it. I think it's still relevant, even though we can be together physically now. Technology is just this layer that's interwoven with everything and kind of increasing. So the kind of presence you can have through technology and sort of looking into that, you can use it as an artist.
Lots of it's carried on and translated into our continued life. Like the moon ceremonies that I do every 2 weeks were from what was a public show that was meant to be done in the Brighton Fringe Festival. And we got the funding for it. And then because of lockdown, we couldn't do it. And then we had the costumes, which is what I wear at Boomtown, and I use them now still. But we just did it all online. So we were all there in our separate spaces, and we really went for it with the backdrops so that they corresponded with our costumes and with the elements. And then we held the moon ceremonies online. And actually, they work so well. That's why I've carried on doing them. So I've done them ever since 2020, because actually ceremony through pointing to people on the screen, basically someone chairing a meeting. Because I think the thing with Zoom is it's people talking over the top of each other. It can get a bit chaotic. So when we were just hanging out socialising on Zoom, it was a bit of a mess. But actually holding ceremony, where the person holding the ceremony is going around each person and asking everyone individually what they're going through and how they are and what their response is to whatever the stuff is that's being said. That works really well. And it just feels like a really special, sacred space, and actually is a really profound space. And it means we can be together from all parts of the world. And I think creativity really blossoms when there's limitations. And part of me doing this podcast is the limitation of being on an island as a theatre maker. I can't perform to thousands of people. There's 500 people here and there. So it's like, how can I do something with what I have, which is basically Starlink and a computer and a microphone? Well, I can do this. This has been what I've come up with. And it's lovely because I wouldn't have done this otherwise, but the limitations have pushed me to do. So yeah, it's cool. I just wanted to say about immersive theatre. The thing I love about immersive theatre is that it's about reality. The thing I got from Fooling, which is the cosmic bit, is that the whole of life is theatre. You know, I can totally see that in the work that you do as well. Playing with people and pointing out that we're all playing roles and that we know how to behave in this situation because it's a script of sorts. And that we're always able to twist that script and mess around with it. You realise that the whole thing's made up and that we could do something different with it.
Exactly. When people realise, oh, I know the script, I know the cues for this, we get to do it slightly differently this time. If it's a game, everyone knows it's a game.
Yeah.
It's important.
Brilliant. Right, should we pull cards then? So we're going to pull 3 cards and we'll see what the universe wants us to talk about. Yay. Excellent. I'll just do my finger really slowly and you tell me when to stop. I'll go like this.
Stop.
That's a good one. So it's the priestess. So the priestess is, I think this is a bit like what we were just talking about with reality. Sorry. She's vibrating. She looks like she's vibrating out of reality. I suppose I'm interested actually with this card. I'm interested to know what you think reality is and what do you think it's all about? What's your interpretation of this madness?
There are so many layers to it, aren't there? And I think having to earn a living and the particular ways in which we're expected to earn are living now kind of almost keep you on a bit of a track and on sort of a few layers, and there's almost not time to come out, to go up or to go down, to kind of sink to the depths and be very still and go inward because of the demands to earn. And it's like very, very hard to, because in a workspace, I mean, some people have a job where this isn't necessary, but in most workplaces, even if they're remote, you're required to spend most of your waking hours behaving as if this bit is the main bit and it's the most important bit. And not even this bit, but like the particular script of your workplace and the particular script of, you know, the desired outcome of your work. And if you adhere to that sort of layer well enough, you'll be remunerated, and then you get to eat and have somewhere to live. And then, you know, and if you don't, if you deviate off of that too much and you haven't got enough to eat, somewhere to live, if you can't like nourish yourself and your family, then it's even harder. And there's just no space to lift off or sink down and explore. But there's so much either side. And this part really is an illusion, but we're just encouraged to think of it as real life, you know, because we're not set up to facilitate each other to deviate from it for any length of time. You've almost only just got time to point out that it's not real, but no one's really got time to comprehend the importance of that.
Yeah, okay, great. I'll put that on my list of things to think about at some point. Yeah, no, totally. I like that. That's a really good description, because I feel very like on the one hand, I'm a Capricorn, and so I'm half goat and half fish. And the Capricorn goat bit of me is very political and literal and scientific and practical. And then the fishtail bit of me is really wah-wah and out there. And I think I am pretty balanced. I have quite a balanced life of spending time in both. But I really like the way that you just described that thin layer, because we are so tricked into investing so much time and effort in that I think most people don't have that opportunity to think elsewhere. And that's, I don't think that there's necessarily anyone purposefully doing that, although that could be questioned. But there is definitely a benefit. It's a bit like the same as us being put into years of age groups at school. I don't think that was necessarily done for nefarious reasons, but the upshot of that is that no one's ever learning from previous achievements in terms of overthrowing authority or control. We're always reinventing the wheel because we don't hear from the generations previous that they managed to overcome some obstacle by doing X, Y, and Z. We're always like having to start from scratch because we're only talking to our peers. And so, yeah, there is an element of control by being kept in these thin layers. So, yeah, I think that's really interesting. I like that. If you enjoy this podcast, then please consider supporting me on Patreon, which is patreon.com/Jolie Rose. I absolutely love making this podcast. It is my dream job. And if I could make this make me a living, then I would be living my best life. I already am living my best life, but I'm doing it without any money. But I'm getting by. I am getting by. But I would love it if I was able to actually make a proper living out of this and not have to do, you know, extra work working in a pub and things like that. And I create a lot of free work in the world, which I thoroughly enjoy doing because I want work to be accessible and for people to be able to explore the things that I find useful, the tools I find useful, like following the moon phases, which I help people to do through holding moon ceremonies on Zoom and putting out articles in the local press, and which I also share on social media, and videos. I put videos up each moon cycle as well. And so people are able to tap into these through free mediums. And I love doing that. And I want things to be free as often as possible. I occasionally do charge for things. And when I do, it's because I need to make a living. And also I feel that sometimes you need to make that kind of financial commitment to make the work deep enough, which I've talked about in previous podcasts. Like sometimes you need to invest in what you're doing for it to really hit properly and land properly. But on the whole, I try and make my work free and accessible. And so this podcast is free for anyone who wants to listen. And if you're able to financially support it, then for £3 a month, you're saying thank you. And you can do that through Patreon. And then for £9 a month, you're also getting the videos of the podcast. And so you get to see me interviewing my guests or me just chatting to myself in a room on my own, which is always fun. So hugely appreciate everyone who supports me. Thank you ever so much. And I love doing this. So long may it continue. And if you aren't able to financially support, then you can spread the word far and wide on social media, talk about it, tell your friends about it, rate it, give it a star rating. And just keep listening and keep telling people about it. I am going to also be doing some live work that you can come along to, which includes the Kooky Club on the 19th of June in Guernsey, if you're in the Channel Islands. Each month for the Secret Kooky Tea Club, I interview a surprise guest, and they're always an interesting, inspiring person, normally a creative or an artist, but sometimes scientists, all sorts of different things, curators. And I interview them, and we have a different chef each time who creates a delicious meal for us to share. And it's to encourage people to be able to have a night out without drinking. You can drink alcohol if you want to, but there's lots of beautiful alcohol-free drinks available. And it's just to get conversation going and spark debate without having to be drunk. And it's a brilliant evening. I love it. I'll also be at Glastonbury Festival at Shangri-la in not very many weeks' time. And if you're coming to Glastonbury Festival, do head over to Shangri-la and see the incredible change of direction and creativity mayhem that we're going to be sharing in the naughty corner. So do come and have a look. And I am walking another pilgrimage in September and October. I'm going to be walking from Cairnle Bowl near Land's End to the Norfolk coast. And we're going to be performing our Mama's play of George and the Dragon along the route. So it's along the Michael line. And I will be doing a book launch pre-sale tour as part of it, encouraging people to pre-order my new book, Walking with Autumn, which is about the first pilgrimage that I walked. And pre-sales really help push a book. So it would be great if people could order their copies ahead of time, just to give it an initial push and get it up there so that it's noticed by the bookshops so that they'll stock it. So I'd really appreciate if people did that. And I can't wait to share it with you. I'm very proud of it. I'm finishing the editing off as we speak, and it'll be coming out in September. All very exciting. And I think that's it for now. So on with the show. Let's do another card.
Yeah.
Oh, right then. You can tell me when to stop. Gain. That's an interesting one. I haven't pulled that one for a while. So this is the 9 of discs. So this is an Earth card. We've just had the Earth dark moon. So we're in a kind of earthy energy at the moment. So this is gain. I mean, what does that mean to you? Is there anything that means to you, or even looking at the image, whether that means anything to you?
Gain with an N.
Yeah, Gain.
Yeah. Okay.
It's quite an interesting word because it's a bit like, what does gain mean? How do you gain?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the earthy energy and living in a field that's very apparent at the moment, like how everything has been working on busting out for quite some time, and now suddenly it's all ready. It's just like the hawthorn and the magnolia has been and gone almost, and like the wild garlic, and it's all just like, so there's that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm supposed to just be focusing on my PhD at the moment, but opportunities to get a different job or something that I consider more exciting or whatever keep popping up, and I keep like chasing after those, like a little fox after a rabbit, and like distractibility, but just like kind of scampering about, like, oh, that sounds good, that'll be better than what I'm doing, I'll chase that. It's a lot of work, and it's quite fragmenting of my attention. I'm noticing that a lot at the moment. I'm supposed to just be sitting down, writing bloody big essay as often as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Chasing things.
Yeah, we talk about with Jonathan Kay, the great distractor. And I feel like that's part of this layer is the distraction of social media, of TV, of things that just take your attention, like TikTok, that are forever being quicker and quicker to just consume, so that your brain's just quickly moving on to something before you even have time to fully digest anything or like really sort of savor it and devour it and have that nourishment from it, because you're then moving on to the next thing. And it's interesting, your reflection of the earth, because I had a moment when I was on the first pilgrimage that I did where I had this vision of it was getting close to the end. I think it was almost like the penultimate day of the pilgrimage, and I had a wee next to a hedgerow, and I suddenly had a real emotional outburst because I was sad that I wasn't going to get to hang out with my hedgerow friends anymore, and that I was going to have to go back and sit in a chair. And I didn't want to sit in a chair, and I could feel that my body was like, no, don't make me sit down again. And I had this vision of this dirty tarpaulin just covered in muck. And underneath it was Donald Trump and Boris Johnson and just all the noise and nonsense and the threat of war and all this like horrible grottiness under this tarpaulin. And above it was this beautiful hedgerow and land and sky, and everything was stunning and beautiful. And I was being told that reality was what was under the tarpaulin. Yeah. And that I was meant to get back under there and participate in this nonsense rather than being out in this beautiful hedgerow, fresh air, lovely land that's what is actually real. And that for me is reality. Like, even this reality might vibrate and turn into something else. It might be a game or whatever it is. But beyond this thin layer, which is this made up conscious thing that humans have created as a game on this planet, the actual planet, which is why I would say I'm a pagan, because I worship the earth, where it's like, well, it is here. It's definitely here. And I definitely worship it. So I'm happy to call myself that without any of the trimmings. I don't assign myself to any faiths or anything to do with that. But I definitely worship the magnificent land that I walk upon, because I think it's worth worshipping.
Yeah, and it's so immensely reductive to view it all as a raw material, be turned into tokens in our little thin layer game when it all has its own life.
God, yeah. That's great. Again, I really like the way you're thinking about that. That's what we see it as, is it's almost like in Minecraft or whatever. I don't actually really know how you play Minecraft, but it's just the things to use to put within the game as just stuff to consume and buy. And yeah, you're right. It's taken away the immensity of what we actually have and reducing it down to just like Lego bricks that we can put together and use. But it's all about using and consuming and taking rather than appreciating what we have. Yeah, no, absolutely. Great, let's do another card. You say stop.
Stop.
She's cool. The Queen of Wands. So she's very fiery and powerful looking. She looks like she's on fire and she knows what she's doing. And Wands is very much about passion and drive and your desire and kind of not the head. The head is the wands. Fire is the bit that makes you want to do things, like the engine behind what you're doing. And she's obviously very, very powerful in her sort of combustion engine. What does that mean to you?
Just makes me think of like all my favourites, really. People I live with next door in the field who like being fueled by a desire to make and do, but all of that fire being like directed towards like loving and joyful and a lot. Yeah. I don't want to make any great claims for myself because I used to do a lot more activism than I do now, but like a lot of my friends like plough a lot of their heart and creative energy into activism for the earth and against genocide and for refugees and just like, trans rights and inclusion and just like, because as an artist, you have to have a fire to make things. So the people that makes me think of are all quite doing that in quite a connected way, like not so much a sort of shut away way from this like deep well of love and connection. It's like a sort of shared fire, and I'm inspired by that. It's sort of fiery lovingness. And they're not, the people I'm thinking of are not just soft and cuddly, like they're fierce as well.
Yeah, that's what I love about our world, this part of our world, is the kind of Mad Max-ness of it. There's so many times when I'm at Shangri-la or like at Boomtown and I just think we're on the right side for the apocalypse because we're really strong with nails, we know what we're doing, and we're going to have a really good time while we're doing it. So I'm definitely well up for being with us guys because we're going to have fun. We've got all the best music. It's something to be so proud of.
Yeah, people who can make a whole world, build a whole world from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. I think being in the squat space meant that we had the space and time to create things. And I think it's harder nowadays for young people to have that space because squatting's not legal anymore. I mean, there are ways of doing it, obviously, but it just feels like that was a privilege for our moment in time for us growing up, was that we were able to experiment and we had that space for that to happen. Yeah. And yeah, I feel like working class people are no longer part of the creative world or the artistic world that's the sort of mainstream artistic world in the same way anymore. And I think that the lack of squatting is a huge part of that. I think that we've been put at a huge disadvantage to not have that space and time to be able to create.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up pretty middle class, but it's a lot to me as much as it is to the entire world, that it's so much less accessible to have that creative freedom as a young person and to connect with a really wide range of people who want to be making stuff and have skills and the drive and deserve that time and that space to do it. But it's so much harder because of every space has to be making money for somebody. It's a massive loss.
And so my last question for you is the Chaos Crusade. So is there anything that you could suggest to listeners to experiment with and try out that breaks the matrix in some way and just makes reality a bit more obvious that it's a game and puts some extra playfulness into our experiences?
Yes. So I would like to recommend a tiny little bit of low pressure fooling. So to pick a mate, pick someone that you trust and who makes you laugh and you make them laugh. And I wrote down a bit of the procedure, like a micro version of what we do when we're doing full training in Beyond the Ridiculous, but just for you and your mate, not in front of a big audience. Do a little warm up and maybe try some fooling. So see what comes out when you stand in front of someone who's witnessing you and you just play. So see if you can notice building up to this, but also mentally discard any plans that you're making beforehand. Because once you've decided to do it, your brain will try to make plans for you so that you're not just standing there with nothing. Key is you've got to stand there with nothing. So you could start with just words or just movement, with eye contact with the person or without, completely up to you. Outdoor fooling can be pretty fun. It's a lot more to look at and interact with. Stay open to all the sensory environment around you, basically. So it's not just your brain, but also your body. What's your body feeling? Make something out of that. If you feel awkward or horrible or angry or shut down suddenly, see if you can just let that show. See if you can amplify that and not pretend that those feelings aren't there, because they might just pass if you play them out and you're only with your trusted buddy. So if you do find something, try to follow it and amplify it as far as you can. During this time, you're running a timer, okay? So I recommend 2 or 3 minutes, 5 if you're feeling super brave and your buddy is up for it. It can feel quite long, even if it's just 2 minutes. And then when the timer goes off, sit with your buddy. The feedback model that we use with Holly consists of a series of questions, and the questions don't leave any room for saying, that was rubbish, or here's the bit I didn't like, or here's what you should have done. You throw all that out. And it's really important because if something came out that you feel vulnerable about, your inner critic is probably already having a go at you and you don't need it from your buddy as well. So the witness would say to the person who's just fooled, how was that for you? How was playing for you? And then the fool might speak, and they might speak for 1 or 2 minutes. You could do a timer if you want or not. Then after that, the fool might ask the witness, what did you see? Describe some stuff, because sometimes you forget what you've done. And it's good if someone could tell you what they saw. What did you enjoy? What touched you? And what did you want more of? And then you can swap, and you can offer the other person you're witnessing and your feedback. And you might hate it, but if you hate it, you never have to do it again. But you might discover some things about what's going on for you and the games you're playing.
It is just such a fascinating process doing fooling, because you keep coming up against the same obstacles in yourself. Like, I feel like I've been doing it, I don't know, 20 years or something stupid. And I don't feel like I've particularly improved. I'm always working with the same obstacles. And it's that thing that you were saying about, like, let yourself be surprised. That's the way I think of it, is don't plan what you're going to do, because it's fun to surprise yourself. Like, we do a thing where we sort of imagine a red curtain, and then we pull back the red curtain and just start seeing something, and just go with what you see. And I always love that, because the red curtain's quite a good distraction from planning. So your planning bit of the brain can just imagine a really good red curtain, and then you pull it back, and then it's like, surprise, what are you gonna now see? And yeah, it's just fun to do this, because otherwise we're just doing what we always do, which is planning it all. That's the thing, we are making it up as we go along. That is what we're doing. No one knows what they're doing. That's why everyone has imposter syndrome. It's taking that and owning it and playing with it even more. It's like, okay, can I step outside of this role that I've created already that was completely made up, and let's create something new? And that is so liberating.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Naomi. It's been amazing to talk to you. It is a very different feel, the fooling lineage that you're from. It feels so much lighter. It's interesting to observe. I think it's more feminine. There's a more feminine aspect, obviously, because it is from Frankie, but it does feel a bit more loving and gentle. So yeah, it's interesting to dip into it. But yeah, thank you ever so much. Huge love to you.
Oh, loads of love, mate. Thanks for asking me.
That was the awesome Naomi Smyth. I absolutely loved delving into this different take on fooling. I feel like the lineage of the Frankie Holly Stoppit lineage is more feminine, but also more active and more activism-y, and it taps more into the punk, anarchic, squatter side of me, which is a whole, area of my reality. And it's a completely different area to my spiritual Jonathan Kay area. So it's interesting that there's these two sort of strands to my fooling experience, because that they feel so different. And it was great to talk to Naomi, because she made me think about things from that perspective, from this other strand perspective. And yeah, I love it. I love how different reality is all the time. And I think everyone should definitely have a go at fooling. Brilliant to just do it in your living room with a friend. I realised that, you're doing it all the time on your own. It's as soon as you've got someone there observing you, it's the word permission. It's giving yourself permission to be who you are and be as relaxed and as crazy as you are when you're on your own, but with other people. And you probably don't even notice you're doing it when you're on your own, because you're just doing it with yourself. You're just in your own head doing whatever. It's giving permission is such a key word for me. Giving yourself permission to own the creative and spiritual and playful things that you're doing, for them to be able to suddenly be shared. And by doing that, it suddenly ramps them up. Like, oh my God, you got to own them and feel proud of them, or feel that they're valid to share. But they are. And when you do, everyone loves it, because they can see you're sharing your inner world, and then they feel like they can too. And that's the whole relationship of the fool and the king, is that the king is used to everyone, kissing his AS. And then the fool is just being themselves. And because the fool is being themselves and saying it as it is, and not pretending to put on some act, it means the king feels like they can. And that's what you're doing with the fool and the audience, is you're sharing yourself so that the audience feels like they're able to. And then everyone is being more honest and open and playful, and not just pretending to exist in the theatre show of life that we've created. Like, this is how you pretend to be a human, and this is how you pretend to be in society, and this is how, a community is meant to behave. It's all made up, and by fooling it, it gets that out there and shows that. And so that's why it's a deeply spiritual thing, which is more like my Jonathan Kay world, and also a great tool for activism and messing with reality and questioning the constructs of reality, which is what the more activism-y Naomi strand to fooling does for me. So absolutely fascinating. I love it. It's so interesting. And I'm going to definitely go and do some Holly/Frankie workshops to dip my toe into this other version of the art form that my life's been changed from exploring. So why not explore it even deeper and go in some different directions with it? So I'm going to go do that. That's my I'm going to put that in my things to do either this year or next year. Give that a go. I definitely think you should too. Go and do a workshop either with the female lineage or the Jonathan Kay masculine lineage. Go check out Frankie, check out Holly Stop It, and have a go. I dare you. Thank you ever so much. It was wonderful to speak to Naomi, and I shall see thee anon. Nonsense in the chaos.